Hello, beautiful people. We are ready for an exciting meeting, and we're talking about common sense, or maybe the lack of it this week. We are going to get started with someone who has a lot of common sense. That would be Rob, who's going to pull up the flag for us. Rob, woo!
Thank you, Madam President. If everyone would kindly mute themselves, focus on my screen and my voice, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Back to you, Madam President.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate that. And I'm going to send it to our Toastmaster, who is going to be, wait, who's the Toastmaster again? Vicki, thank you. Playing musical chairs and my brain exploded. Okay, Vicki. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to table topics because if it goes with the theme, if is common sense common, I would say no, and there would be no more discussion. So we'll see how it comes along. But at this point, I would like to introduce our general evaluator to introduce her team. Madam General Evaluator, Mary Cyree.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see everyone tonight. I'm your general evaluator, the evaluator of anything and everything that takes place throughout the meeting. Evaluation should be a positive experience, and it is designed to help people overcome weak habits and add power to their good habits. I have a team helping me tonight so that I don't have to do it all alone, and it gives us a nice perspective on the meeting itself. So let's start with our two speech evaluators. First one is Joyce Matheson. Joyce.
Hello, everyone, and you made it. I am going to evaluate Vicki Graybill's speech. The purpose of this project is for the member to understand the types of persuasive speeches and deliver a persuasive speech at the meeting. And my job is to evaluate her, which I am looking forward to immensely. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. And I think that's a 5 to 7 minute speech.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. And Pat has agreed to step in for Christina Stepper to evaluate Lloyd's presentation tonight. Pat?
Pat, do you want me to tell what project it isn't like that since you don't have it?
You know, that would be helpful since I don't have the details and I can take the notes on it. Thank you very much.
Okay. This is the active listening project, from Pathways. And it is a level 2 project for my newest path, team collaboration. The idea behind this is that I should demonstrate active listening, the idea of engaging with an audience and keeping things going with that engagement. And so the assignment is not a speech, it's that I'm supposed to be the table topics master. And then when each of you, and probably all of you will get a shot at a table topics tonight, have completed your speeches, I'm supposed to say something appropriate about it, segue into the next topic and that sort of thing. So that's what you'll be evaluating, Pat.
Okay, interesting, Lloyd, thank you. The timer is pivotal to keeping this meeting moving forward, and tonight's timer is Rob Tidd. Rob.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. My role this evening is to time the speeches, the evaluations, and the table topics. It's important when giving a speech that your speeches are confined to the time constraints set for that particular speech. This evening we have 2 primary speeches that will be 5 to 7 minutes in length. At 5 minutes, I will produce the green vegetables. At 6 minutes, the yellow vegetables. And at 7 minutes, the red vegetables. The evaluators have 3 minutes for their evaluation. So at 1 minute, the green, at 2 minutes, the yellow, and at 3 minutes, the red. Table topics are 1 to 2 minutes in length. And again, at the 1 minute segment, I will produce the green vegetables, 1.5, the yellow, and at 2 minutes, the savory red vegetables. And I will make my report at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Rob.
Excuse me, I see that
Yes.
Christina has joined us, so I can pass back the job of evaluating Lloyd to Christina since she's better prepared than I. Is that okay?
Is that okay, Christina?
Yes, that's fine. I'm
Yes.
sorry I was tardy. My computer is not being friendly today.
Oh,
I
Okay.
almost threw it through the window. However,
wow, a user hostile computer.
yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Do you need
so
any clarification from Lloyd
Christina's gonna
on?
do that.
Breath. Okay.
Christina, do you need any clarification from Lloyd?
No, I have the paperwork for his talk.
Okay, great. So after timer is grammarian, and Ron Slaybaugh was unable to attend tonight, but Kathleen has stepped in for him. Kathleen, what's
Thank you.
grammarian going to do tonight?
As the grammarian, first of all, I'm going to turn off my phone. And the next thing, though, I'm going to do is I will be looking out for especially good or especially bad grammar. I will also be listening for very witty statements, and I know there will be many because we're such a witty and thoughtful group. I also get to pick the word of the day, which by acclamation is fortuitous. And isn't it fortuitous? I'm going to try. I think I just put it in the chat. Fortuitous is an adjective, means occurring by chance or fortunate, lucky. And then there are a few examples. Thank
Good.
you.
Great. Fortuitous. Dean Carath, you are tonight's counter. Tell us what you're going to be doing throughout the meeting. You're muted.
I am indeed, was muted. Yes, I will be the counter, and I will be monitoring everybody's speech for ahs, ums, ers, ands, wells, repetitions, you knows, you know. That's what I'll be doing tonight.
Great. Okay, keep us on our toes. And after my team reports, then I will have the opportunity to report my observations for the meetings. And I will pass it back over to our Toastmaster now, Vicki.
And I am passing it off to our original Toastmaster who said that he would take over duties, Ian.
Thanks, Vicki. I feel it very fortuitous that I had somebody that could back me up in my tardiness tonight. I apologize, work ran late. Without further ado, however, I would like to introduce our first speaker of the night, Jackie.
Did you get my introduction?
I did not. Like I said,
Okay.
I was running to get here.
I will do the introduction really quick then. We
Okay.
got this. You may have heard many personality type frameworks like Myers-Briggs, DISC, Strength Finders, and others. But have you heard of Enneagram? Since she discovered Enneagram type in 2018, Jackie's world has opened up with new understanding both of herself and of others. Jackie invites you to tag along on her Enneagram journey as she introduces you to the 9 personality types of the Enneagram. Jackie Graybell with the wonderful world of Enneagram. Jackie Graybell.
Has anyone ever heard of the Enneagram? Can you raise your hand if you've heard of it? Oh, quite a few. Okay, raise your hand if you know your Enneagram type. Okay, this is going to be fun then. I'm going to introduce you to all 9 types of the Enneagram. The word Enneagram stands for Ennea means 9 and gram means drawings. And it's illustrated by a circle of the 9 types. The great thing about the Enneagram that I have found for myself is it not only helps me understand my own motivations, why I'm doing something, but it helps me understand the motivations of other people, which enables them to give me a lot more grace. Me to give them a lot more grace, which, as Christina said several weeks ago, is all something we could all use more of. The 9 types are broken down into 3 tri-types. So these are triads. Types 8, 9, and 1 are in the gut triad, and they come from their intuition. Types 2, 3, and 4 are in the heart triad, and they come from their emotions. 5, 6, and 7 are in the head triad, and they come from the thinking brain. I'm going to introduce you to each one now. Hey there, I'm type 8, I'm the challenger. I'm the clear leader of the pack, and I will fight you anytime, anywhere. When I'm healthy, I look like Martin Luther King Jr., but when I'm not, I look like Stalin. Are you ready to be challenged? This one's me. I'm the peacemaker, which is type 9. You can see my tattoo, it says peace. One of my favorite quotes is about inner peace. Anything that costs you your inner peace is too expensive. The Enneagram sees a lot of different personality types, and the 9 is the one that can see all those sides because they're the only one that takes on a little bit of each of those personality types. We struggle with inertia and procrastination. And one person you might recognize as a 9 is Mr. Rogers. The last one in the gut triad is the type 1, the perfectionist. Anything worth doing is worth doing right. So what if you think I'm judgy? The rules are the most important thing, but you had better believe that I leave everything better than how I found it. We're going on now to the heart type and the type 2, which is the helper. I'm here to help in whatever way I can, and I'll never say no because I get my worth from helping others. They better not take me for granted though. Guess what? I brought you a casserole. Type 3, I am the achiever. Everyone knows when I walk into a room and I have many admirers because I'm so charming. I do work hard for my achievements though, and I'm very competitive. Image is everything. Right. Number 4 in the heart triad is the romantic. I have many feelings every day, and crying does not bother me. It's part of who I am. I am different and I am unique, and I like it that way. Hello, I'm type 5, I'm the researcher. Knowledge is the most vital thing to me, and thoughts, I believe, are more important than feelings. I'm the one that stands back and I observe. I value my energy, and because of this, I'm very private. You may not know what I'm thinking. I'm the researcher. Type 6, I'm the loyalist. The genie told Aladdin, "You've never had a friend like me," but the genie never met me. I'm that friend. I'm even better than the genie because no matter what you're going through, I'll be there. I'll admit, though, that I often worry and I get a case of the what ifs. But just remember, if you need anything, pick up your phone and call me. I'll be there. The last one is in the head triad, the adventurer. Dude, I'm skydiving right now. Adventure and adrenaline are the best. Routines, man, are so boring. I am the king of positivity. Woo! I'm on the next adventure because I can't sit still. Those are the 9 personality types. And though they may be a bit of a caricature, you might have recognized yourself in one of those. Here's the great thing about the Enneagram though. It's not black and white. There are so many layers to it and it's a very robust personality type system. One of the things that makes it that way is you realize when you're in growth or in stress, because whatever type you are, you exhibit certain characteristics if you're in growth, and you exhibit different characteristics when you are in stress. And these can be a little like the rumble strips on the side of the freeway that let you know, oh, I'm veering off course. Another element that adds a lot of flavor, kind of like salt and pepper to your personality, is wings. As a 9, I can take on some of the characteristics of the 8, the one before me, or the 1 after me, and those are called wings. There are so many other aspects to the Enneagram, and I hope I've piqued your interest just a little bit, or just a lot, to figure out what your personality type is. And I'm gonna put some links in the chat box so you can figure this out for yourself. I'm giving you 4 links. The first one is from the Enneagram Institute, and it's a broader explanation of the Enneagram. The second one is also from the Enneagram Institute, and it dives deep into each of the personality types. The third one is a free test you can take to find your Enneagram type. And the last one is a link to a book I really love about the Enneagram called The Road Back to You, an Enneagram Journey. I hope you will go and click on those links, and I'm so excited to find out what your personality type is. Thank you.
Timer, would you put a minute on the clock for us so we can all provide Jackie with some comments?
Starting now, Mr. President. Toastmaster. Sorry. That's 1 minute, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. At this point, we'll roll into our second phase of the meeting, the table topics phase, when the majority of us get a chance to speak. Our table topics master tonight is Lloyd Smith in a special table topics presentation for Lloyd, as he'll be evaluated tonight, I understand, on his table topics presentation. Lloyd, would you please take us off into a interesting dialogue about, is common sense common?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Last Thursday, when I was typing up the agenda, I had my usual moment of doubt about what a good theme might be. And then it occurred to me that one of the things I've seen a lot of, or not seen a lot of recently, is common sense. And I began to wonder, how common is common sense? And I'm not sure, so I guess I will let you guys tell me. Now, it appears that everybody has a speaking rule, so that means it doesn't matter where we start with this. So Ian, I'll start with you. This notion of common sense refers to the idea of it being common, that is either widespread or obvious, one of the two. So can you think of a national leader, any party, any cause, any religion, anything you want, who strikes you as having a lot of common sense?
Oh my goodness, that is going to be a tough person to name. I cannot think anybody off the top of my head that's a national leader. And the reason I say that, whether they be national or international or any sort of person in the media, and the reason I say that is because so much of what we hear about these leaders is swayed in one way or another by the media presenter that we are choosing to watch or read or listen to. What we get, in my opinion, is the media's perspective of what that person would like to present to all of us, not necessarily what that person really is presenting to us. Kind of getting back to the core theme of this table topic is common sense. And I like to think I have common sense. Common sense in my job involves understanding how mechanical systems work integrated with electrical systems and how those two systems integrate with technical systems. And I understand how all those systems come together to form one functioning system made up of subsystems. I see so many people that don't understand how these systems interact together to work. And at times it makes me think, gosh, this is common sense. I don't understand why you don't understand it. But that is my perception of common sense. What makes common sense to me is not necessarily common sense for someone else. And what makes common sense for Joyce or Vicky or anybody else on this panel may not be common sense to me. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Ian. Isn't it interesting, and I'm not picking on Ian here, but isn't it interesting that when I said, can you name a single national leader who seems to have a lot of common sense, his face went blank. And I suspect that is not unique to Ian. If any one of us had been asked that question, we probably would have had the same reaction. One wonders whether that would have been the reaction, say, back in the days when George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and all of those people were our national leaders. Well, we're not going to know since they're all dead. The other day, I stumbled, I don't know how this happened, but it popped up that YouTube, I was searching for some videos about some speaking things, and YouTube popped up one that looked odd on the list. And what it was, I had no idea that there was such a thing, but what it was a video of a guy eating a hot pepper called a ghost pepper. And there are apparently two different peppers, ghost peppers and Carolina Reapers, that are like tens of thousands of times hotter than jalapenos. And there are hundreds and hundreds of videos of people who are eating those things in order to prove how tough they are. And the results are uniformly poor. That is, some tough guy, some football player type guy munches one of these down, and then the video shows 3 or 4 minutes of him sobbing and crying and sweating and begging for his mom, that kind of thing. So I was thinking, I wonder who would be a good one to deal with this. Rob, can you think of a spectacular instance of lack of common sense that rises to the level of eating a ghost pepper? That something you've witnessed, or not necessarily something you've done, although that might be entertaining too.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Toastmaster. Well, going along the lines of doing crazy things like eating hot peppers, it reminds me of the gentleman who is able to eat the most hot dogs. And I've watched this person many times on TV. And this gentleman was maybe 120 pounds soaking wet, yet he could eat his weight in hot dogs, which makes no sense whatsoever. And why you would want to do that in the first place seems so uncommon to me that I don't know why they do that. I, for one, could never do the hot pepper challenge. That would destroy me in I would be down and out for weeks if I were to do something like that. But to watch these challenges where people do these extreme things, like eating an overabundance of hot dogs or chili or hot peppers, defies common sense to me. And you will never catch me entering one of those contests because I've got more sense than to do something strange like that. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Rob. Oh, what a shame. I was looking forward to seeing you on the next, I think it's 4th of July that they do that contest in Coney Island. The reason they do it, the prize this year was $15,000. Changed your mind, didn't you, Rob?
I just changed my mind.
Excellent. If you've never seen that contest on TV, it's worth looking at. I guarantee you will not be hungry for hot dogs after you watch those guys eat them, because their definition of eating involves cramming the hot dog into a cup of water and stuffing the entire thing into their mouth and then swallowing it whole. Not a happy sight at all. Pat, this morning on NPR, I was kind of idly listening, and the topic of what to do about the opening of the schools nationally came up. This is a big issue, not everywhere, including right here in the Valley. And they were talking about the two basic positions are obviously, it's better for the kids to be in school. If a few of them get sick, that's just the way it goes. The other position is, no, it's too dangerous because some of them might get sick and die. And where they were focusing was Idaho. And this was a big deal because in Idaho is a very conservative state. And in Idaho, the local school boards, generally speaking, want to bowl ahead and open in person. And the Idaho State Department of Health and all their county health agencies started ordering the school districts not to open. So the legislature passed a law that forbids the public health authorities from giving any orders to any government entity, including school districts, about anything. And it also forbids the school districts from reporting statistics about illnesses to the health departments. And the Speaker of the Idaho State Legislature, Speaker of the House in the Idaho State Legislature, said that taking advice from experts is an elitist thing and nobody in Idaho is going to do it. So Pat, what's your reaction to that?
Wow, that is a fortuitous assignment for me for a number of reasons. First of all, as an educator for more than 50 years, and someone whose roots are in elementary education, and furthermore, someone who spent 6 years as Assistant Dean of Education at Idaho State University, and has a sister who lives in Idaho Falls, who is married to a descendant of the first territorial governor, I have a sense of Idaho and its culture. So, if your question is about the person who said that taking advice from an expert is an elitist kind of thing, that's the fundamental question, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me about Idaho. It doesn't surprise me about Westerners. It is my sense of people who have lived in the West all of their lives, there is a very strong independent streak. There is a mindset that is opposed to snotty people. I'm just going to call them those kind of people. My sense of it is that what the Speaker of the House said, though, is not truly based in common sense. As an educator of all the years that I've spent, I've been very concerned about decisions about education being made by people who have no contact with education at all, other than going to school perhaps themselves. So his saying that is classically Idahoan, but it is also classically insensitive to the importance of education to children. I don't have the answer to whether we should be totally online or we should be involved in going to school full-time right now. I think it probably is dangerous. I wonder if this gentleman has children or grandchildren that he cares a great deal about. If the children were to go to school, they might bring something home that would damage someone very badly. Or they, because they're finding now that more young children are coming down with COVID-19. And that's a pretty scary thing. I think he needs to learn about common sense. And what I know about Idahoans, they're either farmers or ranchers. Would he use common sense to make a well-being decision about his cows, his horses, or his crops? That's the question I'd like to ask that dude.
Thank you, Pat. Well, I don't know. After I listened to him this morning, I thought, wow, that's good advice. So like if my transmission goes out in my car, I'm certainly not going to take it to a transmission shop. That would be an elitist thing to do. I'll take it to my dentist or something like that. Or just the average guy on the street should be able to tear that thing apart and put it back together with no problem. For a moment, I thought the guy might be joking, but then I realized by the tone of his voice, he was not. He was deadly serious. Okay, well, speaking of the COVID pandemic, which is, of course, the thing that dominates our lives and has for the last several months, probably will for some undeterminable time in the future, every credible expert, let's put it that way, tells us that the simplest, safest, and cheapest things we can do is to maintain social distancing, wash our hands as much as possible, and wear masks. And yet, a very large fraction of people doesn't want to do those things. Mary, why do you think that is?
Pat kind of nailed it when she said people have a stubborn streak. And also people don't like change. They don't like being told what to do. And we've never really had hard times. We really haven't. Think back in history, 100 years ago was the last pandemic. None of us were alive. Actually, the people who went through that pandemic, or very few are alive. We've had, in our, I don't know, in our parents' memory or grandparents' memory, we've got the Depression, World War II, the Vietnam War for my generation, and those protests. But it's been a pretty darn good life for the last few decades. People aren't used to hardship. They don't understand what it is. And they don't think it'll happen to them. We've been fairly untouched, really, despite tragedies such as the 9/11 tragedy. This probably is the next one. It seems like about every 20 years, something galvanizing happens. And maybe it's fortuitous that, you know, we've got this national, actually pandemic, so it's worldwide issue that everybody in the world is affected by. And maybe there will be some kind of a shift where people realize they're vulnerable and sometimes you have to give up your freedom or, you know, wanting to do things your own way for the greater good. We can only hope. And that would be common sense.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. A while back, I read an article about the 1918 so-called Spanish flu epidemic, which actually began in Kansas, not Spain, but in any event, during the aftermath, when they were trying to deal with it, exactly the same issues came up that are coming up with us. And there were numerous places that tried to institute mandatory mask requirements. Several of those places had riots over it, including Los Angeles and Seattle. And so there is no new thing under the sun, I'm afraid. And it's, you know, nobody does learn apparently, which is kind of disheartening because I too spent almost a half century in the schools, but that's the way it goes, I guess. let's get away from the serious stuff like the pandemic and whatnot. Think about the more personal. I was thinking about displays of common sense and lack of common sense that I personally witnessed. I taught high school, so there were thousands of them, obviously. But probably the least sensible thing I ever watched anybody do in person was something I witnessed in the back room of Bill's Tavern in Cheney when I was a college student at Eastern. And that is that a guy, to win a $1 bet, put a pool ball in his mouth. And it turned out he could do it. The trick was getting the pool ball out of his mouth, and he could not do that. So I'll ask Dean, can you top that, Dean? What's the most spectacular display of lack of common sense that you've personally witnessed?
Thank you, Lloyd. I'm not sure that I can top that, but I have a few things, only one of which I can remember at this point, which is we used to, well, we still do, drive to Saskatchewan to go on long canoe trips. It takes about 22 to 24 hours to get where we need to go. And one year we decided we were going to drive straight through. So we got over the border and out into the plains of Alberta and Saskatchewan on Highway 1, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. There's no cars around, there's no police around, and our truck found its velocity up to 90 miles an hour, flying through the dark of the Canadian prairie. At one point, I looked up and I saw a brief flash of a big blood spot on the road, and then I noticed a large herd of large mammals on the shoulder. The next thing I noticed was a car all the way across. This is a 4-lane highway, all the way across through the ditch and over on the other side of the highway in the ditch. And of course I slowed down and thinking, geez, should I go check on them? And then I saw the ambulance coming. So we passed that opportunity to be good Samaritans, partly because I wouldn't have known what to do anyway. But that was supremely stupid, to fly through the darkness at 90 miles an hour, not recognizing that there could be large mammals or anything else on the highway, which we would run into and probably get seriously hurt or die. So that was one of my attempts at winning the Darwin Award, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Dean. It's surprising how people do that in the lesser populated states. I'm thinking of Texas and Montana in particular, where lots of people decide, well, the road looks wide open, so we might as well go to wherever we're going very, very quickly. And they occasionally encounter large mammals on the roads too, like cows and bears and whatnot. Bear versus Audi is not a good contest. A friend of mine had his Audi demolished by running into a bear coming down from Stevens Pass. Okay, how about another education-related question, I guess? Kathleen, here's the question. Can common sense be taught, or is it just something people either have or they don't have?
Can common sense be taught? No. Rules can be taught. We can teach people to line up at school for their lunch. We can teach them to do their homework. We can teach them rules, but we can't teach them common sense. To me, common sense is sort of like the tomato-tomato debate. One person's common sense is another person's idiocy. I might not want to go to an elitist to have my transmission, an elitist transmission shop. to have my car worked on. Or I might think that an elitist is really someone who thinks they know a lot about something, but they don't. That's why I wouldn't want to go to that person. To me, common sense is something you learn primarily by your mistakes as you travel through life and do stupid things, as Dean described to us. It's fortuitous that Dean did not have any serious accidents as a result of 90 miles an hour down the road. In summary, I would say that we could send people to school for 25 years and a portion of them would still lack common sense.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's an interesting notion. When you mentioned, we can teach kids to line up for lunch and we can teach them to do their homework. I never had any luck teaching either of those two things. Maybe I needed to consult an expert or something like that. Okay, Joyce, here's a little bit odd take on this. I was reading a bunch of stuff about common sense over the last few days, and I ran into a guy who, and I can't think of his name, which is why he's just the guy. But anyway, the guy said that the problem with common sense is that we only value things which are uncommon. That in other words, diamonds are uncommon, and so that's why they're valuable, whereas agates are much more common and thus less valuable. So do you think that's the problem, that common sense is too common and that's why we don't value it?
I used to think that. Now I just think that everyone's so out of their minds that they wouldn't know common sense if it came over and slapped them with a 2x4. I work in an office where I am surrounded by people from the IT department. They are computer whizzes, but the things that come out of their mouths when they're not talking about the network is astounding. I think to myself, am I still in the office? Or are we having happy hour and I'm the only one who isn't drunk here? They're sober, but the words that come out make me think, the Darwin Awards weren't that far off. It was fortuitous that Dean mentioned the Darwin Awards. I know of a few coworkers who, by the skin of their teeth, very narrowly avoided being a chapter in the Darwin Awards. As for diamonds, anything shiny, we are like magpies. We like shiny. We like something that no one else can have, must have the precious. And we are basically overgrown apes that learned how to order a Starbucks latte. And I hold that to my heart. So every time that I do something stupid, I realize people are idiots and I am a person. And I feel better about myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. I like that notion about wondering whether you're the only sober person in the room when everybody is saying bizarre things and they all look like, yeah, that's the way it should be. Well, let's see okay, we have time for one more, and Vicki, it's going to be you, okay? Because Christina, I assume it would be a little awkward for you to do a table topic since you're evaluating my giving of it, although that would be an interesting epistemological experiment too. So Vicki, here's your question. And I've seen variable ideas about this too. When people do really stupid things, is it best to just kind of humor them or tell them it's okay? Or is it best to ridicule them on the theory that if they're ridiculed enough, they'll stop doing stupid things?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Well, that was a great start. The thing is there are people that have this gene that just haven't been developed. And you wonder what is going on in their mind. And I'm thinking when you were talking about the pool ball or the eating the hot things and filming themselves while they do it. And people watching this, it just fascinates me first that people are intrigued by this and want to watch these people do this. And it kind of reminds me of that statement of, hold my beer, watch this, because you know that nothing is going to happen good once that statement is made. And I myself got trapped in watching one of those things because Dax Shepard and his wife, Kristen Bell, took a challenge and ate this chocolate that had some sort of hot thing in the chocolate. But they did this because the chocolate company said, we'll donate money to whatever charity you want. And I think the video is about 18 minutes of them just in pure agony as they just took a small bite of this. But it was intriguing to watch them and think, why? Why would you even do this? Because I'm sure that the amount of money that was being donated was not worth what they were going through. I don't understand how this gene is not manifested so that we don't have this problem within our society, but we do. And then people get sucked in to watching people not be part of this. So, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Vicki. I have to say, your table topics was a disappointment to me because you stole what was going to be my concluding line. And that is that the motto of lack of common sense is obviously, hey, hold my beer and watch this. Famous last words for numerous people all over the place. Okay, we have reached, well, we're a little bit past 6:15, obviously, so I will turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster, Ian.
Thanks, Lloyd. Very fun table topics tonight. At this point, we've reached the point in the evening where we're going to find out how we did with the various parts of our speaking. I'm going to turn it over to our general evaluator to get us started in the evaluation of tonight's meeting. Mary Cyree, would you please take it away?
Thank you, Ian. I certainly will. And let's just dive right into it with our speech evaluations. I'd like to hear from Joyce Matheson first, who will evaluate Jackie's speech. Joyce.
My pleasure. Jackie, I had so much fun listening to your speech. It was trying times for me to write things down and focus, and it reminded me so much of my beloved Robin Williams when he did a set about the United States flag. It was just enthralling all the way through. Your tone of speech was confident, optimistic. It was so much fun. I loved the different characters, the accents that sent me. It was very informative without one knowing that they're learning. It's amazing. I look back and I was having so much fun laughing that I realized I was getting information too. Not many people can do that. You know how to do that. Your hand gestures were fantastic. You've been working on it, I can tell. The lighting was perfect. You did your very best to get that light going, and it shows. The only thing, this is just as nitpicky as one could possibly get because I could not think of anything, was the pause between the characters when you had to grab a few things. It happens, but just to do a segue in between, maybe it's something you might want to look into. As for your eye contact, I felt like I was just watching a variety show when you were the entertainer. There was no looking down unless you were to get something, and it was fine. I had the most fun watching you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Christina, we're all interested to hear what your evaluation of Lloyd's unusual speech is tonight. Take it away.
Thank you, Mary. The purpose of Lloyd's speech, or rather table topics facilitation, was to see how well he was listening to the various speakers. The project suggests commenting after each speech, which Lloyd did that very well. That's the only thing on here that it is suggesting. Commenting after each speaker, it did give a clear indication that he was listening, which was the purpose of this, to measure how well he was listening. One of the challenges, segueing to other parts of table topics in general, with so few of us on this evening, filling the time became, I think, more of a challenge for Lloyd, and he did a great job of that. I don't know if you caught me looking down a bunch, but I was timing the amount that you spoke, Lloyd, and it was over 11 minutes of filler that he did in order to bring us to conclusion on time. That's a masterful trick. Not something that we should all hope to do as table topics leaders, especially when there are more people on who don't have speaking roles. One thing I would suggest would be to incorporate the theme into your questions and responses more frequently as a reminder to all of us what our responses should be focusing on. There were two different ways that you handled questioning. In some occasions, you selected the person and then gave the question. In others, you gave the question and then selected the person, which is the way tabletop or Toastmasters recommends that it be done. To keep everybody paying attention is give the question, then choose someone. So everyone is thinking, how would I answer that question if I were the one to be called on? Once the name is given, others may tend to tune out and not pay attention to the question. As far as your project and the goal of your project to demonstrate that you are listening well, you did a great job with that. This was interesting evaluation. I, as always, look forward to hearing more speeches from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Rob, you are the timer tonight. Can you tell us how each of us did in our speaking roles?
I would be happy to, Madam General Evaluator. Our main speech this evening, Jackie, you were spot on, 7 minutes. Lloyd, I wasn't quite sure how to time your speech. I think that Christina was monitoring the time, so I'm going to go with what she said at this point in time. For table topics, the following. Ian, you were 2 minutes, 1 second. Pat, you were a little over that, 3 minutes, 4 seconds. Mary, 1 minute 45. Dean, 2 minutes, 10 seconds. Kathleen, 1 minute 50. Joyce, 1 minute 42. Vicki, spot on, 2 minutes. I don't know how you did that. Wonderful. And I was 1 minute, 21 seconds. For the evaluations, Joyce, your evaluation of Jackie's speech was 2 minutes, 12 seconds. And Christina, your evaluation of Lloyd's speech, 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Wonderful job, everyone. And that is my report. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Hey, thank you, Rob. What's up next? It's the grammarian, Kathleen. How did we speak? And what about that word of the day?
Everyone was extremely well spoken tonight. No surprise there, and full of common sense. The word of the day, I might need some help with. I heard it once we actually started 4 times, fortuitous. I heard it from Pat, Mary, Kathleen, and Joyce. I heard it at the beginning from Rob and Jackie, kind of as we were getting started with the meeting. I may have missed someone. I apologize if I did. The other words that I heard that were interesting, Jackie used the word caricature. I love that. Rob used the word overabundance when talking about people eating a multitude of hot dogs. I thought that a little amusing, almost an oxymoron. And a few other phrases that I thought were interesting. Dean's description of flying through the darkness, the reference to winning the Darwin Award. I had not heard that before. Joyce, you're always very amusing. And your description of the IT team and never knowing what's going to come out of their mouths when they're talking about a subject other than information technology. Vicky, and Lloyd gets credit for this one too. Hold my beer and watch this. That was a new one for me. I really enjoyed it. Finally, the quote of the day had to come from the gentleman in Idaho who didn't want to take advice from an expert who is an elitist. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. As general evaluator, I just have a few things to say about the meeting as a whole. I want to be respectful of our time here, but I would thank people who are willing to step in at the last minute. We're all really good at doing that and is very much appreciated. My quote of the night was from Jackie, anything that costs you your inner peace is too expensive. I like that. Pat, I want you to give a speech on your table topics theme. I just wanted you to keep going on the education question. I thought that was really interesting. Maybe sometime. And I've really been inspired by Jackie's run of speeches. So Lloyd, I want to be a Jackie, so sign me up for a speech next week. And I want to let y'all in on a little secret. Jackie and I have been working together for the past few weeks. I've been acting as a mentor of sorts with Jackie, and it's really been fun. I've learned a lot from Jackie, and I just thought I would remind everyone that if you want a mentor or just help with a speech, let your Vice President of Education know, either Lloyd or Kelly, and see, have them match you up with a mentor, somebody to help you out. And that's been a lot of fun. So I'm going to turn it back over to our president.
Time out. I think we need an counter report.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just stomped
That's
over
okay.
it.
I'm sure none of you missed it.
Oops.
But since I so carefully took notes,
I was wondering what you were waving at me for.
I sent you a chat.
Okay, Jackie, you had no fillers. Rob, you had no fillers. Ian, you had a kinda. Mary, you had 2 ums and a Joyce, you had no fillers. Christina had none. Ron had none. Lloyd had 11 minutes of impromptu speaking, so he had 6 ums, a well, 3 4 repetitions, and 2 kind ofs. Vicky, you had an as you noted when you started. Pat, you had an and Kathleen, an and Good job, everybody.
Thank you, Dean. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I'd like to turn it over to tonight's president, Jackie.
Thank you, Mary. And thank you for what you said. It has been so fun to work with you. It really has. You think very linearly and analytically, and that is perfect for me because I don't think that way. And Mary's amazing. Thank you everyone for making tonight an incredible, incredible meeting. I know we're right at time and Rob is reminding me that we have to vote. So everyone send your vote of speaker of the night to Rob. And maybe while we're doing that, I can mention really quickly that Toastmasters is already getting us ready for the next quarter of dues, the next semester of dues. Lloyd, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, the next due period is October 1. It would be better to do it earlier than that, but we're missing both of our treasurers tonight. And so I kind of hate to say, here's what we ought to do without them having a lot of input since they actually have to do the job. Okay. So be thinking about that. Obviously, since we can't meet in person, neither club can meet in person, we're going to have to do it by mail. But let's wait to see what Eric and Ron have to say about how they want to do it, okay?
Thank you, Lloyd.
Yeah.
I could speak for Eric and say, mail your checks. There, how's that?
Okay. Yeah. So I'll put the address and whatnot in the email tomorrow, and then when we hear from Ron, we'll figure out what to do about the toasters. Does that sound okay, Ian? Okay.
Yes, it does.
If you could also include the amount, Lloyd, that'd be helpful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for the speakeasy, it's 56. Wait a minute. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And also,
That's due then?
Vicky had mentioned to me in the chat if I would go ahead and email those links about the Enneagram to Lloyd. So Lloyd, I'm going to email those, and if you could send those out with the
okay, sure.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's still time to sign up for the international conference, which starts next week. I've heard that there's over 15,000 people that have signed up. Biggest conference ever. But so sign up, but none of the times, thankfully, will hit our meeting time next Monday, because I think they start at like 3 o'clock in the morning or something our time, so don't worry about it. But yeah, sign up if you want to hear speech contests. They're going to be great, and they are also having workshops that they're going to be doing. So
completely free.
Kathleen, you had a question or comment?
I wanted to ask Vicki, do you have, if you want to listen to the recording, because I'm going to be out of town, do you sign up then for the event?
Yeah. Register for the event, and then you'll be able to log on for the links.
Okay.
Recordings, yeah.
Thank you.
Great questions. Thank you. Rob, are you ready?
I am ready, Madam President. We had 11 people on the call tonight. 5 people were recipients of votes for the best speech tonight, which was fantastic. However, we have to select one winner, and tonight's winner is Jackie Graybill. Congratulations, Jackie.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you guys for making this an amazing meeting and a fun meeting. And seriously, check out the Enneagram. I'm excited to hear your numbers and your types. I'm gonna go, hey, oh, you're 2. Robbie, you're 2? Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all. I like it. You're the helper. Rob's gonna bring us a casserole. Okay. I'm gonna go mingle with the other bajillion people in my house, my parents' house. And I will see you guys next week. Y'all next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.